How you doing?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
I hope you have a good day.
Hope you have a better week.
I hope your month is full of successful days and a lot of great ventures. I hope you just come up, brother.
I hope your whole fucking year is spectacular.
Oh, you hope my year is spectacular.
Yeah.
You got something you want to say?
You got something?
What up, family? It's your boy Amaru, and we are back. It is 2023, and One Gotta Stay is back to argue and have fun and just talk shit all day. If you haven't been here before, my name is Amaru Moses. I am the host, and today we're going to give you some impossible choices to choose from. That's what these guys here are for. We have 4 composers, and instead of one having to go, they have the distinct honor of choosing only one to stay. Only one gets to stay, and the work of the rest of them are gone forever. But more about that later, as Andy will come back in a second. Let me introduce the panel to you. First and foremost, one half of the crew that I had to get on here because we're talking about composers. One half of the crew from Settle the Score. It is one Mr. Matt Knost. I'm gonna call him Knost from here on out because we got another Matt on the screen. Knost, how you doing, sir? With the Bulls hat and everything.
I'm good. Since when is it Amaru? I was calling you Amaru. So one's got to go. Which fucking pronunciation? If you're not pronounced Amaru, why don't you introduce yourself to me? I don't know, 8 months ago when we first met as Amaru, because I would have called you that.
34 years of different people saying 50 million different pronunciations of Amaru. I just let it go at this point, and then somebody will hear me say my name, and I get this conversation every single time.
Yes,
but it's okay.
Fuck up my last name constantly, and it's Knost, and then you just move on because you fucking correct them the first time.
I thought I did, but maybe not. Though it is a little bit more because some people can't do the accent. But yes, it is Amaru. So I appreciate the love for the names because my name is my name and it warms my heart. So I appreciate it. But other than that, how you feeling about what we got going on today?
I'm good. I see you want to segue off of this topic. I'll grant that to you. Not a problem. I'm good. I mean, the premise of the show, basically, we're just excising the rest to the dustbin of history, and we are no longer going to pay attention to them, is kind of brutal, to be perfectly honest.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah, it is, because even as a 1 through 4, it's a finite number. They're all amazing. I wish you had made it like 1 or 2 really good, and then 1 or 2 that's like, yeah, I could easily that's clearly number 4.
See, most people have seeing what the episode was. They were like, why don't you have John Williams? Because John Williams would be the number 1, and that would make the show not as interesting. So that's why I did it where you're like, oh shit, I don't know who to pick and who. So that's the point. I'm very glad I've done my job. I very much appreciate it. Very much appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good. You're basically just setting the 4 of us up to get hate from other people. Yeah. So we appreciate that collectively. And Amaru, we will come and kick your ass. That's for every insult that gets lobbed our way, we will come and visit it upon you tenfold.
Okay, that works. That works. After we hate on each other, everybody can throw the hate on us. That's good. Throwing it down, the man, first time on the show from the Film Fragments podcast, as well as his own YouTube channel, Mr. Bryan Sudfield. We had the same conversation about names earlier before we started. Bryan, how you feeling, sir?
Not as intense as the conversation that just happened right now, but I'm doing pretty great. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm so excited to talk about these composers. And after this, I'll probably jump off a bridge because I'll probably regret what I'm going to say. So thank you for that.
No problem. No problem at all. Just no bridge jumping. I don't want that on my conscience. And then next to him, been on the show many a times. Will probably be on the show many a times more from WAT Reel Entertainment. One Mr. Matt Knost.
Glad to be back on for what's probably the 4th or 5th time. Yeah, apparently Rue just keeps liking to invite me on, and I just say yes for some reason. So, hey, I'm here. I'm ready. I normally end up sparking a lot of debate and have some very strong opinions, but it is what it is.
Hey, you like being on here. You like.
I do like being on here.
You like throwing it back. And our final member, Mr. Andy Merryweather, right at the right time. His browser crashed, so he is on his way back. Luckily, still have a lot to go through before we get started. As I had mentioned, we are going to and wait. As I say it, he returns. The other half of the Settle the Score crew. One Mr. Andy Merryweather. Piano might be played at one point. It may not. It is up to his whim whether or not he hates us as much as everybody else apparently hates me on this podcast right now. Andy, how you feeling about the task I set to you today?
I'm okay. I'm extremely biased and stuck in my views. So we'll see how we get on. I'm hoping I won't get too aggressive, and also I'm hoping my browser stays alive because that didn't last long. But currently have a backup computer being booted up, so if I do drop out, I'll just be switching them over. But yeah, I'm excited. This is an interesting take. There's I don't know if I missed any of the complexities of the rules. I don't know if the 3 people that we omit from the top of the list dying or all their stuff gets burned or whatever. But yeah, anyway.
We've talked about excising. We talked about ignoring. Really, I make it as vague as possible to make your own decision however you want. They're just gone. So that could be deaf. That could be ignorance. That could be they're there and you just don't get to deal with it. It's however you feel. It makes it more interesting, and I love it that way. Great. Speaking of the 4 composers that we have to choose only one to stay are one, Mr. Danny Elfman, as you can see, done Batman and Batman Returns, the Simpsons themes. You got the Spider-Man trilogy, Raimi's, Good Will Hunting, Men in Black. Just a good homage of a lot of different things. Second, Mr. Alan Silvestri, who did The Predator, but also did that thing in Infinity War and Endgame that made you cry when he said "On Your Left." Also started out with the first Avenger, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump. One Mr. Hans Zimmer, the man himself. You hear the Inception boom a lot on my show. It's because he did that one. He did Lion King, Interstellar. You can say he did Pirates of the Caribbean, whether it's him, Klaus Badelt. He did the rest of it, so we'll put a little asterisk there. Also did The Ring, which I thought was really interesting. And then last but not least, one Mr. Michael Giacchino, just more names that are hard to pronounce, but the Pixar King, The Incredibles, the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, also directed Werewolf by Night. So whether or not that's going to affect what you do. Too. Did the music as well as probably one of my favorite scores of last year in The Batman. I don't know why it did not get nominated or even on the short list.
We ain't going to talk about that.
Yeah. But with that, all the conversation out the way, let's get started. Matt, and that would be Matt Knost. Who is your number 4?
All right, so this is probably going to get some hate. Even he's made wonderful just themes, some that have stuck around for generations, or not generations, decades. But I told Rue I hate him because this list was honestly the hardest for me to go on, and I just ultimately went based off of whose scores I continually listened to, and Danny Elfman was my first to go. So,
Why is Danny Elfman your number 4?
I mean, to be fair, to me at least, outside of the Batman score, Nightmare Before Christmas, and the Spider-Man trilogy, the first 2 Spider-Man films, didn't really have anything that's that memorable to me personally. I know that everybody has their own opinions, but I between the others that I have ahead of them, I listen to their stuff all the time. Just whether it's working out, whether it's writing, whether it's just throwing something on in the background, I'll just pop on a score and have it playing in the background, and it's rarely ever Danny Elfman comparatively. So,
all right. Does anybody else besides me have Danny Elfman as their number 4?
Yeah, I have Danny as my number 4.
Matt knows.
Andy, I'll let you go. Why do you also have Danny as your number 4?
This wasn't the difficult placement for me. This was I was thinking earlier what would make this list harder, and I think if you'd have put Thomas Newman as one of the 4, I would have been really struggling. Danny Elfman, the king of the oompa oompa sound, just does not do it for me. Like I also think the best. I don't know how everyone else is deciding their rules, but I think the best of Danny Elfman is behind him. I also think he has the 3rd worst Batman score on the list, and the 2nd worst Spider-Man score on the list. So yeah, I think he's past his prime. I think he's made that evident with recent work.
Jesus, man.
And I also think, well, this is a list.
I mean,
but
he did compose Justice League. He's not wrong.
And I also think that the quirky side of Danny, like my favorite Danny Elfman score is the ice dance from Scissorhands, and then the funny cool stuff is just not. I think it does accompany the movies well, but the stuff that sounds like Men in Black and Beetlejuice, which are the very, very similar scores, they accompany the movie well, but they aren't nice on the ear outside of the movies. And so, bye, Danny Elfman. Enjoy death.
Yes, yeah. This one was pretty easy for me as well. I will say I did not know the man did the Simpsons theme, and that hurt just a tiny bit. Only a little bit, and I do not agree with the Batman. Let me think.
No,
I don't agree with the Batman take. Andy,
I actually agree with him because I put Zimmer scores ahead of him, and I put Giacchino scores ahead of him. So he's not necessarily wrong. He's not necessarily wrong.
With the Batman one though, like that's to me, that's like the TV show, and that's the iconic Batman score. So that is what gave me a little bit of a pause, but really like. I couldn't tell you the Spider-Man Raimi score if you played it to me, like between that or X-Men or any of the other just generic comic book movie scores, or Scissorhands. I'll give Men in Black a little bit, but yes, they are very, very similar. And I'm just like, you know what? It's fine. Cool. Batman. I'll be sad to lose, but I got other ones that are better. So yeah, for me, Danny Elfman was the easy choice. He was definitely he's going first, and then the rest of them I'm gonna have to like flip 1 through 3. Bryan and Knost, y'all are looking like we're crazy. Apparently you don't have him as your number 4. Any retorts, or we're just gonna move on to the next one? So before you hurt somebody,
I'm gonna hold it all in until we get to where it is for me.
All right.
Has Elfman ever done like a? I guess is Good Will Hunting the closest he's done to having like a drama on his discography?
To what I could like see, that was the one like outlier that wasn't a quirky, kooky thing that sounded the same.
Black
also,
Beauty.
I don't like
Mission Impossible.
Yeah,
but that's Lalo Schifrin and his theme.
I know, but I'm going through movies that aren't kooky right now. So I'm
yeah.
But in his defense, you can click as soon as you say Danny Elfman, you know exactly what he's done. He has a style that is unique. Exactly. Whereas Giacchino and Silvestri, others, you could play 2 or 3 back to back, and if you don't know the movie right off, they all kind of blend together. I'm not saying they're bad. It's just
that's what makes them great, in my opinion.
It's unique. You have to give it to him for there's a reason you hire him. It's like why you hire Trent Reznor. You're getting a very specific sound, and that's what you're going for, and that's what your movie needs.
Absolutely.
I guess. Well, no, since you're on a roll, let's go to your number 4. Who do you? I don't know if it was easy or not for you. But who is your number 4?
It wasn't easy because you're looking at all this, and then I went through everybody's IMDb.
Mhm.
So I based my list like this. How many of these, by just looking at the title of the movie, can I sing the theme song in my head? And the more of those you got, the higher up you moved on my list. Because I figured that was the easiest way. Which are the most memorable without any prompting, going to YouTube to listen to anybody's. So that's how I did it, because I think this is kind of an impossible task because they're all four very talented individuals. But at 4, I chose Silvestri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Going
right.
through, it's, you got your Back to the Future. Yes. You've got Avengers. I can kind of piece together Predator, but it's more about like a feel than it is to me a song. And then after that, like, it starts to fall off a cliff.
Damn.
What else you got? If you could sing off the top of your head, can you sing Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Anybody? Flight? Anything?
No.
Yeah, it's Back to the Future and Avengers, and then after that, it's like they're amazing scores, but I
Hey,
can't sing them
Captain
off the top of
America's
my
his
head.
own thing. Captain
The
America's
first
his own
Avenger
thing.
was very good.
Yes.
The
Well,
first Avenger, that one I can remember.
So Silvestri's only not 4 for me because I think it would hurt to lose Back to the Future. But he peaked in 1984. He hasn't done anything original since 99.
Jesus, man.
Like, okay, so no, wait. What? Let's go through. Let's go through Silvestri's list a second. So, what did you say?
Sure.
First Avenger is the Superman theme. So he's stolen that.
Oh no,
It is.
no.
I can literally play both of you right now. So what else have we got? Oh, so the real hero, the one that everyone cried at in Endgame, is the Stuart Little theme and Castaway theme put together. So those are 99 and 2000. They are literally, go and listen to them. Literally the same score. It is wonderful sounding music, but it's not original. He copied from himself, which another person is guilty of on this list, who's not been mentioned yet. But yeah, I think honestly, Back to the Future is the one that I go, that hurts to lose it, and so that's why he's not number 4. Where I can't say that about Elfman and any of his scores.
It doesn't hurt to lose
and
Gump.
Forrest Gump, the feather theme, it's beautiful, but literally, I mean, my niece could have written that. That is the simplest little twinkle ever. So I'm not with Knost that he's bottom of my list. But I am. He was so close to being bottom of my list, but I just cannot. I cannot feel the way I feel about the Back to the Future score, which was insane, almost probably perfect again, like as the backdrop of a perfect movie, the Back to the Future score. So that's why he didn't get bottom of my list.
I'm not gonna lie, y'all have me rethinking my 2 and 3 right now.
Okay, maybe. But Bryan, you are the last one out. Do you agree with Knost? Is he your number 4? Do you have somebody else?
No, I 1000% agree with Knost because he's also my number 4. Because really, like he said, other than Back to the Future and Avengers, what else is there? Listen, I love a lot of the movies that he composes, but I don't say to myself, wow, the score was amazing. Back to the Future, yes. Avengers, sure. But other than that, slim pick in there. And listen, I love the Forrest Gump soundtrack. It's great. But, and it's stunned putting him at number 4 because Back to the Future is in my top 5 films of all time. But again, besides Back to the Future and Avengers, there's not much to choose from. So, yes, it would be sad to lose the Back to the Future theme, but otherwise, bye. Like, good riddance.
Yeah. Yeah. In that circumstance, it's like picking Top Loader over the Beatles because Dancing in the Moonlight's a good song. Like, it's a one-hit wonder composer, unfortunately.
Exactly.
I mean, when things are really, really great, you can't look. My very first episode of the show, I had Denzel Washington versus Leonardo DiCaprio, and as much as it hurt me, I kept Leo for Inception alone. It made me very sad.
Mm.
So I get the sentiment.
I'm pretty sure that's what ended up happening with me.
So I don't know if it's the single best piece of music, but it's there. It's up there. But
really,
with that,
really
before we go on to our number 3s, we're just quick recap of where we're at with our number 4. So me, Andy, and Matt all have Danny Elfman at number 4, while Knost and Bryan had Mr. Silvestri at number 3, as you can see here. So with that, we're going to move on to me, my number 3. And if I can just copy everything Andy said and put it over to what I'm talking about right now, it's kind of why Silvestri is also my number 3. Look, I have him over Elfman because of Portals, because of the Avengers theme, because of Back to the Future. I did not know the Predator theme. I could not tell you anything else past those. So as much as I love the Avengers, I love Back to the Future, I don't have as much love as our founder Nick does. He is a Back to the Future nut. But yeah, he's my 3 just because he has 2 or 3 really strong ones, and then it's kind of as Bryan said, nothing from there that I can remember. Does anybody else have Mr. Silvestri as their number 3? No, just me, just me. So let's just keep that moving. We had a lot of discussion, and I would just like to say, Andy, thank you for being on. This is beautiful. Bryan, we're gonna go over to you, and we're gonna go over to who is your number 3?
This was probably the toughest call to make. For number 3, and it kills me to say this, Michael Giacchino. This was very rough.
So real quick, is it Giacchino or Giacchino? That's
Giacchino.
my only question.
It's Giacchino. You don't say that. You don't do 2 syllables on Gia. It's Giacchino. Michael Giacchino.
Giacchino. Okay. And also the mess he was talking, I just needed to kick him out for 2 seconds, but it's fine. Bryan, I'm sorry. Go on ahead. So go on ahead. Give me your reason why you're wrong.
Tell us about this new composer, Giacchino.
Oh man. So again, another guy with a lot of great selections, but he's someone to me where his music is very similar to other themes. But then again, there's a lot of great selections. But again, going back to what we were saying earlier, my top 2 I listen to way more than him. And that being said, it was tough, but again, there's more that I love from the top 2. But I have to echo what you said earlier. Him not being nominated for the Batman is ridiculous. That's absurd.
The fact that he was able to make a Batman theme that was different. And anyway,
ridiculous.
Yeah. So you have that. I don't agree with you in any way, shape, or form.
I don't expect you to.
Does anybody else agree with him in any way, shape, or form?
Originally,
I don't have anything to say about Giacchino this far down the list. I'm sorry. I have no opinion.
We already know who's your number 1, man.
What's that about?
Yeah. We already knew. Going into this, when I saw the list, I was like, well, I know what Andy's number 1 is.
Literally shows up on every episode to settle the score.
Yeah, I did have Giacchino at number 3. Kind of weird considering I have Sonata of Darkness just chilling on my wall. But it was one of those. It's one of those things of, I'm not gonna lie, not the biggest fan of Pixar music for the most part. And then remembering how much I disliked his Rogue One score, and other things. I have basically, for me at least, I have like 2 films that really, or excuse me, 3, a film series and 2 other films that propel him to why I listen to him so much, and that is the Batman, which has quickly become one of my favorite scores of all time, the Spider-Man series, great music, and it's not The Incredibles, because
it is The Incredibles, but okay.
No, it's not The Incredibles. It's not The Incredibles. I'm trying to think. Anyways, but there's just not as the Star Trek scores. Love the Star Trek scores.
Incredible.
It's just especially that new theme, and when it came out in 2009, I was just losing my mind. I loved it. I loved it. I didn't want what you guys said about Silvestri. I didn't want that stuff to be the reason why I put him higher. So I ended up putting him at 3, and then we're having this talk. I'm like, shit, maybe I should have just swapped around a couple people real quick, because it was close. It was that close. So
I will say my 2 and 3 were close until it wasn't anymore. Knost, did you have Giacchino at number 3 as well, or somebody else?
Well, the original one I sent you was Giacchino at 3, and then I sent another one like, hey, I don't know if am I able to switch, and I swapped him to 2. I was going back and forth before I sent this to you.
That's kind of what happened.
Well,
I get it.
I didn't catch it, so you don't have it at 3, so we can add on. We'll see what's going on from there, and we'll see who your your 3 is in a second. But we're gonna go to Andy first. Before that, Andy, who is your number 3? And we'll see if you match your co-host or if we have somebody different.
Okay, yeah. I have a lot of positive things to say about my number 3, and this is the problem with the list being 4 strong. But my number 3 is Hans Zimmer. I think that it's a technical placement, and that is because he is the composer version of Jesus with a bunch of disciples that will do his work now for him. I think that potentially, I think actually that Hans Zimmer is the only one on this list that is an actual genius. Okay, that's how it is. But he does play in the world of soundscapes, which isn't fun to play piano on. So that's a personal bias. So his scores are not as fun to play as some of the more melodic people on the list. But I would go as far as to say that some of his best work in the last 20 years has been surrounding himself with the best orchestras and best musicians and best composers, which is really odd, in his circle. And even stuff like Dune, which has Zimmer's name slapped on it, just knowing the way he kind of lives his life and the backseat that he takes, I think that crediting him with Dune might be like crediting Bob Iger with The Force Awakens, to where actually I think it's his musicians that are working hard at this stuff, and he is going, I am in the big chair and I'm overseeing this stuff. I genuinely feel that way about him. I think he is a bit of a 4 chords horseman of the apocalypse. He does like play with 4 chords. Everyone knows the Inception score, but it is just 4 very simple chords. It is very, very beautiful. And I've anybody that follows me on Twitter knows that I've been to see the guy live, and I've sat and watched him play the piano, but then he lets his musicians work and he stands back and just lets them go, and they are the best of the best of the best. And so I feel like if we lost Zimmer, that technically we wouldn't lose a lot of what brings his scores to film. And the only real negative thing I'll say about him, apart from the 4 chords thing and the soundscape, but that's a personal thing, is that his scores sound better on Spotify than they do in the movie, because unlike maybe my number 1, the director doesn't get out of Zimmer's way. Zimmer gets in the way of the film, and Interstellar sounds better as an isolated track than it does in the movie. In the movie, it's kind of like, what the get out of my ear, what the hell is going on? And then you listen to it and you go, wow, that's so good. Why are they crashing all the time?
Didn't he do Tenet?
I'm pretty sure he did.
Did he do Tenet?
Yeah.
Is that why we can't understand anything they're saying?
Yeah, I think Zimmer it might be Nolan, but Zimmer
I'm pretty sure that's a Nolan thing.
It is Nolan, but there are other examples of Zimmer just kind of getting in the way. Dune is not Nolan, by the way, and it's another one where it sounds better when you go home and listen to it. In the movie, it's punching you in the face. I'm like, get off me. It's very annoying. Whereas anyway, we can't talk about other composers yet, but I will bring that point up again as to why people are higher up on the list. So that's what I have to say about it.
And Knost, do you agree? Is he your number 3, or do you have somebody else?
Well, on my original that I sent you, I had Giacchino. The updated was Elfman. I was going back and forth between those 2. I like Giacchino for just the varied, something like Incredibles, because it's like an homage to the SWAT theme, for Christ's sakes. It's a throwback to an era that we don't get musically in film and TV anymore, and that he can segue into all these other genres and do it flawlessly. And Elfman is just iconic. So I don't know which one you have between those 2. That is my 2, 3. It was going back and forth. Silvestri was easily my 4.
I just switched it for you, so your number 3 is now Elfman, as that's your most updated list.
Yeah. All right. So Danny Elfman. There you go.
There you go. All good. All good.
Yeah, that's my
anything
number 3.
You want to add about anything more you want to add about Elfman becoming your number 3, since they had to go back and forth for?
So because of that distinct style, it does somewhat all, I don't want to say blend together, but they all do sound very similar to each other. Once you get third, fourth, fifth iteration in, the distinct individuality of a lot of these are singular within the types that he does. So because of that, it's like, yes, I can listen, I can conjure these all in my head, but I'll be damned if this doesn't sound a lot like this, and this doesn't sound a lot like this. So for that reason, I was like, at least Giacchino is across the board doing, wow, that sounds distinctly different from this. Or he's willing to, like in the Rogue One, take pieces of the original and expand out and make it unique and his own. So just for that malleability, that's why I took ultimately Giacchino over him.
All right. Well, it looks like we're ready to kind of really discuss. So before we do that, just real quick, ignore this part right here. Imagine Elfman here, but for the rest, I have Silvestri at number 3. Bryan and Matt have Giacchino at number 3. And I was very surprised, but it happened. Andy, with a very good argument, has Hans Zimmer. Again, I don't know if he did the Pirates theme or let Klaus do it, but he's also at number. He's also at his number 3. But with that, we're going to get into our number 1s and also our number 2s. But please, as always, if you haven't before, go to bitesizebreakdown.com. We have a lot of good things going over there. We just released some our reviews for Alice Darling. We also have our review for Shrinking Up. I'm very happy that I have seen that whole season. I really love that show. If you haven't watched it, go ahead and definitely watch Shrinking. We also have our Bite Size Awards coming up. Oscars did their thing. We do our own. We have Best Director, Best Music, so on and so forth. But we also have stuff like Best Adrenaline Movie, Laugh Out Loud Awards to give more support to movies that may not get in this award season. There are currently Twitter polls and Facebook polls going out that allow you all to vote on whether or not you agree with our top 5 nominations, if you would have another one. And in addition, coming very, very soon, our own page for Betty. She has an exclusive interview with Brandon Cronenberg, who just came out with Infinity Pool, which is getting a lot of buzz both ways. A lot of people like it. A lot of people thought it was really weird. A lot of people love the first half and not the second. But look out for Paige's interview with Brandon Cronenberg coming soon. But with that, we're just going to get into the nitty gritty. 3 of us have Hans Zimmer as our number 1. And then somebody else besides the obvious person has Michael Giacchino at number 2. And since nobody's on an island, nobody's on their own, let's just get into it. I am with Andy here. You make Toy Story's theme and Randy Newman's theme from Toy Story almost an afterthought with 3 or 4 different movies. You're staying alive. I'm sorry. And making a Batman theme that overtakes any other Batman theme, that man is a genius. I don't listen to scores like that. The Batman is one of the first. Y'all say y'all listen to it at home. I don't. The Batman is the first one. I'm like, yo, I need that. I will listen to it going down the street any day, anytime. I definitely have. It was a little hard between him and Zimmer because Zimmer, again, love Inception. The Lion King is one of the greatest things of all time. But I am with Andy. Giacchino just knocks everything out the park. And Inside Out is very underrated. That score is beautiful. But I tend to talk a lot. Yes. Have at it, fellas. Why? Again, answer me this question. Did Hans do Pirates or no? That's what I want to know.
Do you know the reason you can definitely tell that Hans didn't do Pirates is because he obviously sent 2 people out with the same piece of music, and Gladiator and Pirates both ended up with the same score in the battle scenes. That happened. He obviously sent this is an idea and gave it to 2 people and ended up in 2 films. And he's credited with like Pirates and Gladiator, but yeah,
he is. But if you go listen to The Rock sounds very similar to Pirates, and that predates it by almost a decade. So he stole those. I mean, he's stealing the themes that he's already done. But if you go listen, like there's a section where Sean Connery, when he's escaping from that hotel, after he throws, I think it's John Spencer over the side with that rope, and he's about to dislocate his arm, and he's running through, and he gets into the elevator. That has the same and it sounds exactly like Pirates. So he may not have done fully Pirates, but I'll be damned if his fingerprints are, distinct all over all of it.
I think the comment that just came up saying that he did Pirates 2 through 4 is, I think it's not about who's credited. I think this is like, I honestly think Zimmer is like when you see Steven Spielberg Presents. I genuinely think he's just such a big name that Pirates had to become a worthy franchise for him to put his name on. I do not believe he sat down at the piano. I don't believe he does that much anymore. In a while, I think he just has like the best people in his team. That's how I feel about Zimmer. I do think he's the only genius on the list, though. Like I say.
Well, as a '90s child, I'll say this: Zimmer composed 4 films that their score sat on me. As someone whose father's been a movie critic since before he was born, grew up going to screenings. Muppets Treasure Island, Prince of Egypt, Road to El Dorado,
Lion King.
Lion King, thank you. That was the one I was trying to think of. There's just
thinking about the Lion King. Come on, man.
Bro. I have this shit in front of me. I'm like, yeah. There's just so much stuff that even as a kid of his, I recognize, and you throw that along with the stuff I discovered of his as I've gotten older and become such a big fan. It's just like, he's been such a part of who I am musically, taste wise, since I've basically been born. So I could not lose some of this stuff. I mean, the Dark Knight trilogy, a lot of Christopher Nolan's other stuff. I know the movie itself sucks, but I actually do enjoy the King Arthur score. There's just so much that I'm sitting there and I fuck with it. So
no, that's good. I think you look at Zimmer's IMDb and it's just so many movies. And I think if you take a percentage of memorable scores against the amount of work that he may or may not do, I think he might be the lowest percentage on the list. Honestly, he just does so. It's a lot.
You don't know that for a fact. That's a lot of speculation and positing on your part.
But this also has 0 stakes, right? He's not going to die. Is he going to die? No, he's not.
I'm not
the indifference
or anything like that. No.
Yeah, the indifference of Moses. He's very much like the universe. He doesn't give a shit if you die or you just cease to exist or just fade into obscurity, but you're no longer important to him. It's brutal.
One thing looking this up that I didn't realize, Giacchino also did Lost. And Lost is pretty damn iconic with that music. And that kind of was one of the things that put me over the top with that. I will say, though, the incredible score is just it's beautiful. And also helped me win the first Settle the Score I was on as well. But Bryan, you also had Zimmer on there. You had him as your number one. Why do you have Hans over everybody else?
Well, Hans is the composer that I listened to the most of the 4 that we had here today. And yeah, there's so many iconic scores, and he's a filmmaker. He's a composer that has done compositions for movies that you wouldn't think Hans Zimmer would do stuff for. I'm a big fan of The Holiday. I know it's not the best movie out there, but I think it's a charming, endearing Christmas rom-com. And the fact that they bring him up in the movie when talking about his Driving Miss Daisy score, then he happens to compose the movie himself, I think is pretty genius. The sequence where Cameron Diaz runs to Jude Law at the end of the movie, I mean, spoiler alert, sorry, the movie's almost 20 years old. I love that. It's such an uplifting score. It's so great because you think of Hans Zimmer doing like The Dark Knight or anything with Christopher Nolan or recently Dune or The Lion King. So for him to do music like that is just so great to me. And I may also be biased because I saw him in person less than a year ago. So there might be some bias towards that, but a lot of his scores stick with me. Emotionally, physically, they get me pumped. Some of them make me cry. Some of them make me laugh. Like, that's the beautiful thing about Zimmer is that he has so many different emotions in all these scores that it just resonates with me more than any of the other 3 composers that we were talking about today.
Look, I was surprised as hell when I found out he did A League of Their Own. But then I was like, it's Hans Zimmer. He kind of does everything.
Another good score. Another underrated score.
Arguably is the best Spider-Man score for one of the worst Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Wait,
that's
which
Amazing Spider-Man 2 he composed.
Amazing Spider-Man
did
2.
he
He
really?
also
Oh.
had six other guys on that score with him, including Pharrell Williams. So
Yeah, his name slapped on Maverick. It's just like is there a single moment in that score that's original? I don't know.
Yeah, but
It's Lady Gaga does the new stuff. Harold Faltermeyer did the original. Why is his name on stuff that I don't understand? I love the guy. I'm not dissing
But-
Zimmer.
his is he has a distinct ability to use his composition to help propel. Like, so you don't like Andy Interstellar and how, to you, I guess, obtrusive that music is. To me, it helps sell the impact, the life and death moment, like the docking scene when he's got to get up to spin to match the spin of that the space station is incredible and impactful. Like, Interstellar is the only one on this list. I've watched 2 documentaries on the making of the music. 2 full on. One was just about the organist they found and everything about the organ and how he worked with that guy. And then another one was about the entire creative process. It's the only one. And I could watch it again right now. And he's got several of those where it's just like that eerie single, what is that? A minor note on Dark Knight coming in that just to drive you nuts. But it sets so beautifully the stage of everything that's going on, which is you should feel unsettled and an air of unease. And it's just a single note to make that choice. I just can't think of another composer on this list that would make that choice.
Mm-hmm. No, good argument.
you
All right, when do I get
talk
to convince everyone that Giacchino's number 1?
Yeah, whenever you go ahead.
He's honestly my
go
number
for
2
it, Andy.
now, so go ahead.
All right. Look. Giacchino gets tasked a lot with, and maybe people would put him down on the list because of this. He gets tasked a lot with, here's a loved franchise. Probably John Williams scored it. Can you help us out here? Because he's mostly retired. And he not only manages to pay homage, as Matt mentioned earlier with Rogue One. I will play. Giacchino loves to do this 3-note thing, so I'll play you the original Star Wars theme. I won't play through, but like it obviously starts with these 3 notes. Yeah, and Giacchino goes right those 3 notes, and then I'll inverse those next 3. So. Okay. So start going, okay, well, that is pretty beautiful. And what do you have? 6 weeks to do that? Because who dropped out? Was it Silvestri dropped out? Oh, no. It was,
it was.
No, it wasn't Silvestri. It was Desplat dropped out. Okay. So Giacchino had 6 weeks to come up with something that I think is.
And I get that. It's for how much he had, it's a great score. Just didn't finish Star Wars.
Lovely score. Okay. So we know that Jurassic Park. He takes those 3 notes again and then does his own thing. Okay, he elevates these scores. He stands on John Williams' shoulders, and that is not, you're not paying homage, and it's like, oh, it's not quite as good. He's literally standing on John Williams. No, not literally. He's standing on John Williams' shoulder, standing on the shoulder of a giant.
I'd like to see that.
And I think it's one of those circumstances where, like Rocky Balboa, the legacy composer versus the new guy. And I would go, objectively, I think he might have better melodic notes than John Williams. That's a really tough, and it's a really tough thing for me to admit because of John Williams is my guy. I've got posters of all his scores on my wall, but Giacchino manages to do something fresh. And he gets all these legacy themes, and he gets to play in the world of Mission Impossible. And, the only guy since John Williams, by the way, to put that, the superhero name in his score, like John Williams had Superman, where it goes, da, 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 da. Everyone goes, Superman. Everyone feels like a Superman. And then, so everyone knows this theme. Right? Spider-Man. And those first 3 notes, Spider-Man. And so what did Giacchino do? He put Spider-Man in his theme. He goes, Spider-Man. Spider-Man. Da, 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 da. Genius. Okay. And then you've got stuff where he has to do something really fresh because nothing new has been done with the music in a while. Beautiful. And then he gets to play in the world of Pixar. And I'm sorry you don't like the Pixar music. Okay. The point I was going to make earlier about how Hans Zimmer, I think, gets a little bit in the way of the director, whereas Giacchino The directors get out of his way. I think anybody that's watched anything on maybe Lost knows that there were parts of the scripts where they would just go, give Giacchino 8 minutes. Nothing in the script. Just let him play. And if you think about the opening scene, James Kirk being born in the opening scene of Star Wars, no dialogue, all the audio goes away, just Giacchino's score.
Gorgeous.
Ethan being revived in Mission Impossible 3, drop the score away, drop the audio away, so you're just hearing that kind of low thud of the thumps. Just let Giacchino do his thing. The raft taking off in Lost, parting words, 8 minutes of no dialogue. You're just watching people say goodbye to each other, let Giacchino do his thing. They get out of his way in exactly the same fashion as directors used to get out of John Williams' way, and it's because Giacchino has the ability to become a character in his films. His scores become a character, and I don't think, honestly, you can say that about any of the other guys here. They are not characters. Giacchino's work, and I think I just said 3 J.J. Abrams projects, but there is other examples of people getting out of Giacchino's way. I'll think of it, but I get it.
The Batman is definitely
the first 10 minutes of Up. Everyone credits with just being sad and crying and like the visuals. It's because there is nothing said. There's no sound. There's no Mickey Mousing or anything. It's just that Giacchino deserves way more credit for making people cry. And they just went, here you go, Giacchino, have the first 10 minutes of the movie. And that is not J.J. Abrams. So the guy, I think, is the only one who writes melodies. He's the only one that writes characters. He does motifs. He is the heir apparent to John Williams. But I'll tell you this, John Williams couldn't do an El Mariachi score like in Coco. He couldn't do a Parisian score like in Ratatouille. He couldn't do, the darkness of the Batman. Giacchino gave Batman its own Jaws theme. This is Bruce the Shark approaching, except it's a guy in a batsuit. I could not love this guy more. He also, if you want to get technical about it, is the one that has the most years ahead of him to do better work. He is not even peaked yet. He also plays with the world of video games, TV. He's now directing, and Matt and I are in the world of Settle the Score, where we come up with context clues. And if you've seen any of Giacchino's track listings, the guy does better context clues than both me and Matt. The Apes of Wrath, Guerrilla Warfare for Planet of the Apes. What else did he do? Boonerall, which spoiled Boone dying that season. He loves puns, and as a Brit, that just makes me, that's the cherry on top. And he also spends a lot of time in London, which is cool. I went to his 50th birthday party, which was cool. Honestly, the guy is my musical hero, and that is tough to say because of John Williams, but it's just, you just can't help what you love. This guy is it.
I mean,
Matt, I'm gonna try to buffer it a little bit after coming off of that. I was going to say that Up is the impact for me, but I'm gonna move it on to you. You have Hans as your number 1, but you also have Silvestri as number 2, which Andy does as well. So give me your final thoughts on the list on your number 2, and Andy, if you want to jump in on Silvestri as well, you can. Matt, go ahead.
Sorry, he just had me sucked in, and
I tried to buffer. I tried.
It's hard to reset because he nailed a lot of the reasons why I actually do like Giacchino. So now I'm sitting here, I'm like, fuck, I really did just try to force myself not to pick who I wanted to put at 1 and put him further
but
back.
You picked him
I know.
So hell,
I know. Rue, give me a minute.
No, if you want to take over, you did have
first off
Giacchino number 2, but
first off,
Nose is ready.
I think it's unfair that Andy has a piano. I'll just say that right fucking now, because I don't get to cement my points by playing. You want me to break out my guitar and just start playing some Zimmer stuff? I don't have an amp anymore, so it'd really be pointless for an electric guitar with no fucking electricity in it. So first point, bullshit. I think his answers are disqualified for that reason alone, because he gets to cement better points because he can start fucking playing along with it, and the rest of us just sitting here like a bunch of assholes with our dicks in our hands.
Agree.
Second, I like that Amaru, when you're plugging all your stuff, you're like, the Oscars did their thing, but fuck that. We've got ours over here, and that's the real deal. That's been wormholed into my head. I like that way to dismiss the Oscars. Third, I don't disagree with everything you're saying about Giacchino. There are a lot of J.J. Abrams projects in there, that maybe Abrams is smart enough to say, you know what? He knows intuitively coming into it, I'm going to write the scene, but I've got Michael, and I know that I can utilize him here. But I think Nolan does that with Zimmer. So long as you find a guy that you're compatible with, yeah, go ahead and shake your head all you want to, motherfucker. I think, yeah, when you find a good marriage, it's like Tim Burton and Danny Elfman, and when it works really well. So you know when you can back off or you need to push forward, and you can rely on those individuals. I still think Zimmer's is more memorable to me. It sticks with me longer. It has more impact, and I listen to it more often. Although nobody on this list has the sound or the score that I've listened to the most, and it's not even Williams either. So there you go. So
what is it?
Who is your
Daft Punk's from Tron Legacy? I've listened to that minimum 1,000 times.
Best score of all time.
It's my favorite.
I missed out on my opportunity to just pick that up on vinyl. I was kind of pissed when I went back to the store again and it was sold out.
But anyway, so Matt, have you formalized your thoughts?
I'll give him a little bit more time.
Yeah.
I'll bring it down to Bryan. Bryan had Elfman as his number 2, but also had Zimmer as your number 1. So your final thoughts on the list in general, your number 2, why Hans was number 1, go on ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I feel like I pretty much said everything that I need to say about Hans, but with Elfman, I grew up listening to Danny Elfman's scores religiously. Huge Simpsons fan when I was a kid, but then as I got older and started expanding my horizons with film, I was marathoning Tim Burton's movies, and just the marriage, like Knost was saying, like it was a perfect marriage between the two of them. When they're together, even if you don't like the movies that Tim Burton directs, the score is never the issue with Tim Burton's films. And I don't know who brought this up, but the ice dance in Scissorhands, that's my favorite composition that Danny's ever done. Oh my God. It's so good. Like, I remember when I was a kid watching that movie for the first time, just utterly terrified of like everything that was going on. And then I hear that, and then I started crying, and it moved me so much. And even though you could say that a lot of Elfman's scores are very similar to one another, I still listen to them on loop constantly. Like his Spider-Man music, I love his Pee-wee's Big Adventure score. I think is super underrated. Nobody ever talks about that score. And that was the first time Tim Burton ever made a movie, and it's literal perfection, like across the board. And his score for Big Fish, I also think deserves way more recognition than it gets. The final talk between Albert Finney and Billy Crudup, I don't know what the composition piece is called, but it stings every single time. And I just had to have Elfman in the top 2, because even though I'm letting him go, there's a huge part of me that's like, I really can't let him go. And yeah, I get all the talk about Danny Elfman not being the best, and maybe his scores lately have been great, but for some reason he just hits me. And yeah.
All right.
And
now Matt,
right,
as I said, I'll just quickly, sorry, because I'm Hans number 2, love Inception, love Lion King, up as the Impact, Giacchino did Lost, and the Batman is with me. Matt, go on ahead.
All right, so I already talked about why Hans was my number 1. Ultimately, Silvestri, how Back to the Future has impacted me, and how big of a Robert Zemeckis fan I am, and seeing how many films of his he's composed, and a lot of the reason I love those films are because of his music. That helps. First Avenger is still one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. I love that Caps theme. Love it. But Portals is kind of carried it here, and I regret decisions. So,
hey, and Andy, wrap us up here. You also have Silvestri as your number 2, but just final thoughts on the list in general. You gave us a beautiful thing on Giacchino, but the rest of your list, Alan being your number 2, so on and so forth.
Let me just do this for Matt. Here we go. This is
oh no, we're not gonna do it.
This is what First Avenger. This is how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, ready? It doesn't matter. The same score. So Alan Silvestri is literally, as I said earlier, it's just because of Back to the Future. I mean, it's just even not playing the whatever that is. And then it immediately key jumps, which I absolutely love as well. This was a genius move. But this opening, just take me away. You've jumped above Zimmer with a handful of notes. I think this is. I think I agree. I don't know if. Yeah, maybe it was that someone said best piece of music among the four composers. I think I agree with that. I love Giacchino to bits, and I think he has years ahead of him to come up with something. But I do not think that any one of the four have anything as perfect as this. And granted, it is title music. And granted, he had 2 sequels to improve on it and didn't do anything really apart from replay it. Okay. But yeah, I think he peaked with this Back to the Future score, and I think it is perfect. And that's why he got above Zimmer, who, in my opinion, is far, far superior than Silvestri in terms of talent. Far superior. But it's just this Back to the Future score, man. It's just insane. But yeah, go listen to Stuart Little and Castaway, and then tell me they are not combined to make the real hero, Tony Stark's death. Spoiler alert.
Those kind of decisions that Andy makes is the reason I do the show and leave it so wide open. We do have a couple lists from the chat where Giacchino is saved and Silvestri is last. But for Bryan, he has Zimmer as his number 1, and Silvestri also last. But I'd like to thank all these gentlemen here. Thank you so much for a great show back for 2023. This was amazing. Bryan, I'm gonna bring it down to you. Anything you got to plug? Any things you got coming up for the people to go watch?
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter and YouTube at Bryan Sudfield, and you can subscribe to my podcast, Film Fragments, on any podcasting platform.
All right. Matt, over at WAT Reel, things you got going on coming up soon, things people to look out for.
So tonight we have the HB Hose. That is a show I do with buddy Jeff Ultraman and Paige for Betty, who is a member of Bitesize. That's just our HBO actor show. So, of course, we're talking about The Last of Us. We missed last week, so we're doing episodes 3 and 4 tonight. General movie reviews over at WAT Reel Entertainment. And just podcasts throughout the week when there's time. So check that out.
Perfect timing for your favorite cast member or guest on your show, gentlemen. Matt Knost, Andy, go ahead, plug Settle the Score, and individually, if you had anything else going on between the two of you.
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, Matt and I, Matt's the host of a game show that we do on the YouTubes and the podcasts called Settle the Score. It's essentially a movie soundtrack and score version of the hit game show, Name That Tune. 3 rounds. First round is just I play and sing soundtracks. People have to say what the movie's from, what the song is from. Second round, you get a 5-second snippet. And then the third round is mostly scores, and people have to wager how many notes they think they could get the score on based on context clues, pale in comparison to Michael Giacchino's track lists. Yeah, it's an excellent show. We've had incredible guests, including Amaru. I'm sure we'd love to get Bryan and Matt on, and Paige and Peggy have been on. We've had some great, wonderful guests, and some of the brilliant finishes to games ever, where it's come right down to the wire. Sometimes it comes down to the points being equal, which is insane, and I have to come up with a kind of sudden death score on the spot that I play for people, and that's really fun as well. So Matt, you do it better than me, so why don't you pick up where I drop the ball?
It comes out on Thursdays, so you can get it anywhere you get podcasts. Just search for Settle the Score, and then if you want to watch it, you can go to youtube.com/Matt Knost. And yeah, that's basically it. It's us just enjoying Andy playing. That's when I don't mind the piano. I don't feel that it's an unfair advantage. It fits, complements the show beautifully. But in a debate show, it seems a little unfair that somebody gets to bring in, a tool that the rest of us don't have to cement their point. Guys, it was weighted against us. All right. Notice how Moses and Andy end up with fucking piano on their side, and they fucked us. And I think we start our own show called King Size Beatdown, and we just fucking we do stuff that makes Amaru looks bad. I'm sorry, Amaru.
Amaru,
Is that
thank
correct?
you. Look, yes, it is. If I need to make sure that you and Sam Levine are on this next episode together, so all the complaints come out all at once. And it's beautiful, beautiful episode. Before we end this off, I will do one final recap of our list here. You can see 4, 3, and 2, but as you can see, I fixed Knost's order, but me and Andy did save Giacchino, while Knost, Bryan, and Matt all saved Hans Zimmer. Before we get out of here, for those of you who watched One Gotta Stay before we did the tournament last year, I always end off with one of Peggy's favorite parts of the show, and that is the riddle. The riddle for next episode. So if you have any clue at the end what you think you know what it is, comment in the chat below. Leave a comment if you think you know what it is. But the riddle for next episode. There's been a lot of hoopla about nepotism in Hollywood, and really, I don't mind it at all. It gets us a lot of good things. I mean, it keeps our drinks cold. It gives you a nice fade, maybe a lineup. It gets you in the movies, of course, but it could also get you in a new career. You could like start owning your own restaurant. You might be able to teach in the military. You could really go really deep undercover as a cop. But it's not just family who does that for you. It's friends too. Like they can get you jobs across the country as a magazine editor, or maybe get you into college hoops programs. You know what? They might even write a book about you. But whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether nepotism comes easily for you, or you have to beg and plead for somebody to throw you an opportunity, it's going to be ingrained in this culture. So much so that you might even get invited into groups who you never thought would respect you. With that, for Matt Knost, for Andy Merryweather, for Matt Thomas, and for Bryan Sudfield, this has been the first episode back of One Gotta Stay. Appreciate you for joining us. We are out of here.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.